Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're a continued follower, I want to thank you for following, and please share this commentary with people that you think will find it informative. And lastly, if you want to support this channel, I do have a cash app at $Trevor Donald 20. It's TREVORDONALD 20. So that's $Trevor Donald 20 on Cash App. And I just try to come with what I call a PhD common sense approach to many of our issues that are taking place in America and around the world, and to have a middle-aged viewpoint and vantage point for the things that are taking place and that affect us in America and across the world. And I want to talk in particularly about this new presidential candidate that's come out of the blue, this Nikki Haley out of South Carolina, who had this issue with the Civil War question that was presented to her at one of her town hall meetings as she's making her presidential run. Well, I didn't know much about her, and for those who are not familiar with her, I'll just give you a little backstory. She's 51 years old, married with 2 children. She went to Clemson University. She was elected to the South Carolina House of Representatives in 2004 and served 3 terms. And then she became governor, and she became the first female governor of South Carolina. She was governor of South Carolina from 2011 through 2017, and then she left that and became the 29th U.S. ambassador to the United Nations for 2 years, from January 17th through December 2018, under President Trump. And she's Republican. She's the first Indian American to serve in a presidential cabinet under Trump. So she's Indian from India. So she is of minority status. And that seems a little bothersome, because when you look at her in a physical appearance, she looks like a typical Caucasian woman. But she's actually Indian from India. So you would think that she would have a certain historical perspective on what minorities have gone through, and immigrants have gone through coming to America and living in America, even with us having this migrant crisis that's taking place as we speak, with these sanctuary cities in Chicago, New York, Colorado, Denver, Colorado, and some of these other places. So when the reporter asked her about the Civil War, and did slavery have anything to do with it, she went into a complete fluster and did not even have an answer for it. And this is the most bizarre thing. Now remember, she was the ex-governor of South Carolina. South Carolina, let me give you some historical perspective on the state of South Carolina. South Carolina was settled by the English in 1670. South Carolina became the 8th state to ratify the U.S. Constitution in 1788. Its early economy was largely agriculture, benefiting from the area's fertile soil and plantation farmers who relied on the slave trade for cheap labor to maximize profits. They were part of many Revolutionary War battles in South Carolina, so they were involved in wars. And South Carolina is part of the Confederate state, along with Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana. And South Carolina during the Civil War stood with the Confederacy and joined it in February 8th, 1861. So her state was part of the Confederacy. And for her not to know that as a previous governor, to govern that entire state and not be aware of the historical relationship that slavery and the Civil War had to do with each other, the North and the South, is abominable. And if you've listened to my previous videos, it is very important for us to educate ourselves on our city, our local, city, and state politicians before our national, federal politicians. So you need to know who your mayor is, your councilman, your state legislators, your state Supreme Court, your congressman, your U.S. senator, way before your governor, way before who's running for president and vice president. And she is a clear example of someone that's representing the citizens of South Carolina, and she's not even aware or even cares to be aware of the historical relationship that South Carolina has had with the development of this country from south to north to west to east. South Carolina was part of the Confederacy. South Carolina was part of slavery, as I previously stated. And us doing our own homework and becoming knowledgeable and aware of your politics, your philosophy, your psychology of life, your common sense approach, that all will help you make a better decision on who you vote for and who you want to represent you. When you check off that box in the ballot box, if you check off that box on the ballot, you want that person to think like you. They don't necessarily have to look like you, but you want them to have at least a historical perspective, an understanding of what this country has been about, is about, and what they're trying to be about. And Nikki Haley dropped the ball 100%. And I don't know if she doesn't care. Many times in my experience, when immigrants from India, China, Japan, they have a tendency to want to assimilate with white America. And that's somewhat understandable because that's what's marketed all throughout the world, that America is a place of opportunity and many white people prosper and do well. So many immigrants, if they're especially of the light-skinned nature, Chinese, Japanese, Indians from India, they have a tendency to assimilate with white America more so than black America or minority America. So she probably has garnered her life and navigated her life basically as a Caucasian person. And I know that might sound a little harsh and a little strong with me not knowing her, but if you just analyze the answer she gave to the question about the Civil War, and she stumbled over it and never mentioned slavery in the beginning, when the reporter asked her that initial question, that either tells you that she doesn't care, she doesn't know her history, and how could she govern her own house, let alone a city, let alone an entire state? This was the governor of a Confederate state, and she does not know anything about the Civil War and its relationship to slavery. That's terrible. That is terrible. And I think if that kind of castigation on history and what it did from a humanity standpoint, a moral and ethical standpoint to Africans and slaves, and to just dismiss it is just heartless. I would not want her to be my president and represent me from an intellectual standpoint, an emotional standpoint. Most of these politicians are coached anyway when they're doing a debate. They don't really know. Very few of them have read the entire U.S. Constitution. Many of them do have legal backgrounds but have not really practiced law, but they're legislating, passing policies that affect every human being across the country. And we need to pay very particular attention to our politicians, and especially our local politicians, Who's your county executive? Who's your state's attorney? How are they voting? Who's your governor? Are they red or blue? Do they sway one way or the other way? Those are very important if you want to have some idea and have some control over what your freedoms are going to look like in the future. And with Nikki Haley not having any idea, and mind you, her degree from Clemson is in accounting, finance and accounting. It's not in political science or history or any of that sort of thing. And for her to get lucky enough to become the governor and then a U.S. ambassador and not know the historical perspective of her own state and in its relationship to the Civil War and the Confederacy is just shameful. But what's even more shameful is for the people of color, the unconscious, the unaware, and even the semi-conscious to vote for her and think that she's going to be a representation of your freedoms and your desires and your demands for a better world for people of color. That's not going to happen. And the biggest hypocrisy of it all is she's considered a person of color. She's from India. Even though it's Asiatic, it's not Germany, it's not Poland, so it's not Russia. She's from India. And so she should have some kind of understanding for people of color, for immigrants, for minorities. And evidently she does not. She has passed her way through this entire system in America basically as a white woman. And that's okay if that's what she wants to do. But if you're going to run for politics, you're supposed to represent all of us, not just some of us. And it seems like to me that she is trying to assimilate herself with a particular race to take advantage, financial advantage for herself personally and her family. And it seems like she's Republican, and it seems as if she will placate to people of color and the minorities to get the Republican vote. But I don't think she has any true desire to be a representative of people of color if she does not have any idea how slavery was part of the Civil War. So let's pay attention, let's manifest our truth, let's raise our level of consciousness, especially in these political arenas, this migrant crisis, this homelessness that's going throughout our country, this opioid crisis, mental health issues, joblessness, these inept urban city schools with our kids being testing 2 grades below their grade level. These are all issues that are going to affect us today and most definitely tomorrow. So please pay attention to your politicians. We're going to have a new presidential election coming up here in the next year. Trump's trying to run again. Biden is almost ready for a nursing home. I don't know who's the best candidate, and let's make a very conscientious, smart, intelligent, research-based decision on who you want your political leaders to be to represent you.